Good morning, eighth graders. So I really liked the idea, even though we're back in cohort schedule, of you guys having the video you can access at any time and at any point, and you can also pause me. We've had technical difficulties for different cohorts just streaming in with like sound and being able to hear me, and also while I'm talking to my cohort in my classroom. So this is what I am going to do for the next 2 weeks at least, or 4 days that you have me for the next 2 weeks, is I'm going to be uploading a video that you guys can pause at any point and your cohort teachers can stream up onto the board, kind of like math. So today is Tuesday, the 5th, and I just wanted to go back to the 15th, and I just wanted to say that I was really impressed with a lot of your guys' effort for the planet picture book. They were amazing, and I haven't gotten all of them uploaded yet because I go through each one of them with my rubric and I grade it based on the rubric that you guys had. So I was really impressed. They're not all up yet. If you have not completed your picture book, I know you're already watching this video, but click off of me and you need to work on that because that is worth 100 points and I do not want that to affect your grade. So if you have not completed that, go back and go ahead and work on that and try to submit that. But that is something that needs to be done within the next week, or else I'm going to be taking off points for lateness. Okay, so we are going to be talking about the lunar cycle today. Obviously, the video is not uploaded yet because I'm making it. So that's going to be here under number 1 as well. So I'm giving you the presentation and the video. So if you want to look through it while I'm talking, you can too, but you'll also see it on the video screen. And then this is what you are going to be filling out while you are listening to this video. So go ahead and pause me and open up your lunar cycle notes right now. And it is under Google Slides. And it's not my favorite for note taking, but just because it's a little bit less accessible for you guys, and it's harder for you guys to type, but I tried to make it as easy as possible. I make sure that I color the boxes so that it's easy for you to see. A couple things before we get started with these. So for the sketch of the moon phase, what I want you guys to do is use that scribble tool that we've used before, which is where you go to line. Oh, and then you press that little arrow button down and you use scribble. And so this one should be really easy because it's just a circle and then either a line through it or not. So I will show you how to do that when we get there. I'm going to be doing the first page with you guys, and then you guys are going to be filling out the rest of the last 2 pages by yourself, just so you guys can get a hang of it, and then you guys can do it on your own. So I'm going to go ahead and open up, oops, set that free. Open. Okay, so here is our lunar cycle presentation. So this is replacing the amount of time that I would be talking in class. So I'm going to try to, I've heard that I speak really quickly, but it's just because I get really excited about this stuff. So I'm going to try to tone it down and to slow it down and to try to make things as easy as possible for you guys to understand. So this video might be a little longer considering it's one of my first ones. And then once I get the hang of it and how much you guys actually need for me to speak to you guys about it, then they will eventually be shorter. So this is our lunar cycle presentation, and we're going to start talking about the moon now that we've talked about the planets. And this is our moon and our moon and Earth relationship. So it's obviously the lunar cycle, but the name of our moon is Luna, after I think the Roman goddess of the moon. And it's also Luna is Spanish for moon. All right, so it takes the moon about 27 days to revolve around the Earth one time. So that is not orbit, that's revolving. So that means that our sun or Earth is here and it takes 27.3 days to revolve around it. The lunar cycle, so the cycles that we see from full moon to a new moon, which is where we can't really see it, takes about 29.7 days. And I'll explain what this means here in just a second. The phases of the moon are a reflection of the light bouncing off the moon's surface. So the moon doesn't have light of its own. The surface of the moon is white or really light gray, and that means that it reflects when we wear white we know that it reflects white a lot better than something that's darker, and so that's reflecting the sun's light. So it does not have a light of its own, and that is what causes the moon phases. The moon appears to change shape because of only certain portions of its illuminated sides are seen as the moon revolves around the Earth. So what this means is that because it doesn't produce its own light, it's basically like a sphere. And that means that when you guys are doing art projects in art, and you guys are talking about sources of light, you guys shade. And that's what's happening with the moon. If the half of the moon is always going to be illuminated, but from our perspective on Earth, we can only see part of the illuminated sides of the moon. So there are going to be 8 moon phases. Obviously, everyone knows about the full moon. I don't know if everyone knows about the new moon, but then there's also crescents, so slivers, and those crescents come in different phases. So there are 8 moon phases. And the same moon phase is seen by everyone on Earth each night. So wherever you are on Earth, you will always see the same moon phase, whether it is 12 hours ahead or 12 hours behind, because of, obviously, while it's daytime here, it's going to be nighttime on the other side of the planet. People in the northern and southern hemisphere, so we're in the northern, do not see opposite moon phases. The first half of the lunar cycle, the light reflected off the moon's surface appears to increase. So the first half, we are increasing in light. So that means that the moon is getting brighter and lighter, and it's increasing in the size of the brightness. The half second of the lunar cycle, the light reflected off the moon surface appears to decrease. So I'm going to pause this really quickly, and I'm going to go through our lunar cycle notes. Okay, so it takes the moon 27.3 days to revolve around the Earth at one time. The lunar cycle from new moon back to new moon takes about 29.5 days. The phases of the moon are let's go back and let's see. The phases of the moon are a reflection of the sun's light bouncing off the moon's surface. So we're going to go back, are a reflection of the sun's light. The moon appears to change, let's look back, shape because only certain portions of the illuminated side are seen. So the moon appears to change shape because only certain portions of light are seen from the moon as the moon revolves around the Earth. There are 8 moon phases. The same moon phase is seen by everyone on Earth's night. People in the northern hemisphere do not see different moon phases. Did I spell it right? No. Different moon phases. The first half of the lunar cycle, light reflects off the moon surface, appears to increase, and the second half decrease. I won't wear my glasses. I can't see anything. Okay. All right, so now we're moving on to the moon phases itself. So I'm going to be talking about each one differently. So we're going to talk about the new moon, which present, beep, beep, beep. All right, so the new moon. So this is where we don't see the moon at night, or we can, but it's really, really dim because the light, so if we are looking at the moon from this perspective, so if we're looking at the night sky and we see the moon in the sky, that means that our light source is going to be behind the moon because the back half is illuminated, but we cannot see it. So that means that the sun is here and we are obviously looking at it from the screen. So the new moon has no reflected from the sun is visible. So that means that the illuminated half is behind the unilluminated half. So this is not technically the dark side of the moon, even though there's no light. The dark side of the moon only refers to the fact that we don't know what is on the other side. Well, we do now, but back in the ages where we hadn't gone to the moon, we didn't know what was on that side of the moon, and it was also like a topic of discussion about like what's hiding back there. So the dark side is only referring to the fact that we don't have any information, that we didn't have any information on it. So this means that there's no light reflected from the sun on our visible side from the perspective of Earth. It occurs directly after a waning crescent. So we know what crescent means. It just means that like the DreamWorks symbol or logo on Shrek or whatever, that's what a crescent is, but before a waxing crescent. So we're going to be talking about waning and waxing. So waning is going to be on our second half. Waning means that it is getting smaller. I always think of waxing as getting bigger because, like, if you wax your car, you're adding more to your car to protect it. I don't think any of you guys have ever done that before, but waxing, just think of you are adding onto your car. So that means that it's going to get bigger. Waning means it's going to get smaller. So occurs, and this is going to be a little confusing right now before we see the visual, but you guys will see in just a second. So this occurs after a waning crescent, so a smaller crescent, because the crescent is what we see for light. So it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller until it's not there anymore. But before a waxing crescent, where it's going to occur on the other side, where that crescent is going to get larger. Okay, so now we have our waxing crescent. So that means that we have that crescent and it's going to get bigger on this right side. So less than half of the moon is visible from Earth, so we can see only that sliver. And the visible light appears on the right. Oh, I think I said left earlier. So the visible light appears on the right. So it's going to increase on the right. Occurs directly after the new moon, which is where it was completely dark, but before a first quarter, which we'll explain in just a second. But let's go ahead and go back to our notes. And so no, for the new moon, which is where it was the kind of dark gray orb, so no visible light from the sun. No, let's go back. New moon, no reflected light from the sun is visible. Sorry, that was my bad. No reflected light from the sun is visible. Is that right? Maybe. Occurs directly after I believe it was waning crescent. Oop, new moon, but before a waxing crescent. So waning. And then a waxing. I never know if I'm spelling crescent right. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so now what you guys are going to do for the sketch of the moon phase is we're going to go up to our scribble tool again and scribble, and it doesn't matter what color it is, but we're going to do a sketch of the moon phase, which is literally just going to be a really bad circle apparently. And if you want to fill it in, you can, but you do not have to. So let's go ahead and do, or if you want to add a shape, if that's easier, you can do that too. And that's much better of a circle. Whoops, there we go. And then you can fill that one in to be black. There we go. Okay, so that was our new moon. And so now what we're going to do is less than half of the waxing crescent. Less than half of the moon is visible from this Earth. The visible light appears on the right side. Right side. And occurs directly after a new moon, but before a first quarter. Okay, so now we're going to do the sketch of the moon phase, which we can do. Let's see if there is a shape that we can do for a crescent. If you guys find one, go for it, but I'm just going to do this again because I liked it because it was symmetrical, and then I'm just going to do the scribble tool, and I'm going to, do that. There we go. Oh, that's cool. it fixed it for me. Cool. So then that is my waxing crescent. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next. Present. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our first quarter, which is where we can only see, I know it sounds a little weird, it's where we can only see half of the moon, but in perspective, it's actually, like, think of it as two sides. So this is the first side, and then on the back is the second side. That's why it's called the first quarter. I know that seems hard to wrap your head around. It still kind of confuses me as well, but just think of this as one side of the coin, and so then a quarter of it would be full. So that is where the half of the moon is visible from the Earth. The visible light appears on the right. So first we had our waxing crescent, which was getting bigger, and now it is a full half moon. First quarter. It occurs directly after a waxing crescent, which we just explained, and then before a waxing gibbous, which I will show you in just a second. But let's go ahead and fill out our notes. Okay, so the half of the moon is visible from Earth. The visible light appears on the right side. Let's see, I'm just going to double check. On the right, it's okay. Occurs directly after a waxing crescent, which we have right there. But before a, which it was then a waning gibbous, I believe. Let's just double check. Yes. Oh, waxing gibbous. Okay, perfect. So I was incorrect. Waxing gibbous, which is the strangest name that I think is part of the lunar cycle. I don't know why it's called a gibbous. It might be some sort of geometry term that I do not know of, but I just think of, I don't think of anything. I just have to remember gibbous is opposite of crescent. So let's do the sketch of the moon phase. We are going to do our nifty little shape again. We're going to cut it in half and then scribble tool. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Let's delete that. Oh, I guess we can do a line. Oh, there is no line. Okay, that's fine. We'll just scribble again. Oh, haha. Line. Perfect. So, and that is our first quarter. So this is pretty self-explanatory for all, for the rest of the moon phases. And then on this one, you guys are just going to fill in like we normally do. And then here is where you guys are going to do. So we know, let's fill out this a little bit while we go. So we know that this one is our new moon because it's fully dark. So we can say new moon here. And then we know that this is going to be, oh, since it's going to be on the right, this is going to be our waxing crescent. And then we have our half on the right, which is going to be our first quarter. Always just remember that the first quarter, so number 1 is going to be up at the top. So like at our 12 o'clock on a clock. And then we have our, what is going to be our waxing gibbous. So that means that the crescent is going to be dark on this side. So that means that it's just going to be slightly larger, which we'll get to here in just a second. So, and then after on the checkpoints, when we're all done with these slides, then you guys are going to go through these 5 questions and make sure that these are complete sentences. If it overruns the second question, just try to make the font smaller if you want to, or if you need to, so that I can see all of your guys' answers. I don't know why this worksheet didn't give you guys more room. So let's go ahead and go to our first quarter. Okay, first quarter, learn that. Okay, waxing gibbous, which a gibbous is just where it is not slightly, it's not a full circle, but it is also, so it's more than half, but not a full circle. So waxing gibbous. More than half of the moon is visible from Earth. The visible light appears on the right. So it's still appearing on the right. Occurs directly after the first quarter, which we just had, where it was half of it, but before a full moon, which we all know that term. A full moon is fully visible, 100% illuminated as viewed from Earth. So if we are looking at our moon from this perspective, from straight on, that means that the sun is behind us. So that means that the full, our light source is from behind us, and so we can see the entirety of the moon's surface. Marks the halfway point of the lunar cycle. And it occurs directly after our waxing gibbous, where it was only slightly not illuminated, but before a waning gibbous, which we can guess that's going to be on the, whoopsies. I can't go back. Oh, yes, I can. Which is going to be, which I just showed you guys, where it's going to start appearing on the left side for the light. Now we have our waning gibbous. So that means that our gibbous is going to start to get smaller. That is why it's called waning, not waxing, which our gibbous got larger for the waxing. More than half of the moon is visible from the Earth. So it's the same situation, but now it's going to start decreasing. The visible light appears on the left side, and it occurs directly after a full moon, but before the third and last quarter. So we have the full moon that was just a second ago, and now we're, instead of having the first quarter, we're having the third quarter, because I say last quarter because we have, if you want to say third, you can also say last. I won't say anything. I'm not going to count that wrong, obviously. So that means that this part, so we had that first quarter here, and now we have the third quarter. I just say last quarter. That makes sense in my head, because we have that other quarter here that is illuminated, and then we have the other side as well. So half of the moon is visible from Earth. So that means that if we're looking at our moon in the sky, that means that our sun is over here on this side, on the left side, but we can only see half of the illuminated half, so quarter. The visible light appears on the left because now our sun is on the other side. And it occurs directly after a waning gibbous, but before a waning crescent. We're almost done. Less than half of the moon is visible from Earth. So that means that our sun is now moving even farther to the left and almost going to be behind it, because that happens with the new moon, is that the perspective is that we line up and we have the Earth, the moon, and then the sun, because that's why we can't see the reflected light. So now the sun is like somewhere over here. The visible light appears on the left and occurs directly after the third or last quarter, but before a new moon. Okay, so now what we're going to predict the phases. So each fourth of the cycle takes about 7 days or 1 week to occur. So a fourth of the cycle would be our first quarter, our new moon, our first quarter, our full moon, and then our last quarter. So that takes about a week. So that means that when we look up at the sky, we can say that in 7 days, if it is a full moon, that it is going to be a last quarter in a week. So I just explained it. So if there was a new moon on December 10th, so that means that it's completely dark, there would be a first quarter on December 17th. So in 1 week, we know that the first quarter, only half of on the right would be illuminated of the moon. So that would occur 7 days or a week later, 10th to the 17th. To move two moon phases ahead takes 7 days or 1 week. So that means, obviously, we go from new moon to waning crescent to a quarter, so the first quarter. So each moon phase takes about 3.5 days, right around. If there was a waxing crescent on August 7th, so that means that that crescent is getting larger, there would be a waxing gibbous, which is where that gibbous, it's going to be more than half, is on August 14th. You guys understand math. Okay, so this is where we were filling out our lunar cycle diagram. So go ahead and do that on your notes. We know that this is new moon and full moon. If you guys know nothing, just remember that. New moon, full moon, These are going to be your first quarter because it's up at the top. This is going to be your last quarter because it's at the bottom. And then you're going to look at the crescents. Crescents are only what are illuminated. If it is on the right side, it's always going to be waxing because it's going to be getting bigger. So waxing crescent, waxing gibbous. Then we have our waning gibbous because the waning gibbous is going to get smaller into a waning crescent because it's going to disappear. So it's like a clock, but counterclockwise, because we have the sun, and this shows our perspective from Earth, not from the perspective of Earth, the sun, and the moon. I know that's a little confusing, but if you were to be a little, well, maybe not in the middle of the ocean. So if you were standing here looking up at the sky, this is what you would see as we go across, because the sun's light shines this way. And so if we're on Earth and the moon is here, we would see nothing because the illuminated side is on this side. So it looks like that. And then we would see the perspective of, it would look like this. Okay. Oh, new moon. Waxing crescent. First quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, first quarter or third quarter, last quarter, and then waning crescent. Okay, so here are your checkpoints. Write a complete answer to each question on your notes page. Question 1, what causes the different phases of the moon as seen from Earth? So you guys are going to go back to that first or second part in your notes and look at that. It has something to do with light. What is the difference between a waxing moon and a waning moon? Look at the words. Which one's going to be bigger? Which one's going to be smaller? How much of the moon is visible from Earth during a new moon phase? So how much, just go back to your new moon part, the new moon section, and look at how much is visible from Earth. Question 4, if you observe a waxing crescent on February 3rd, on what approximate date would you observe the next waxing gibbous? So go ahead and look at your diagram and then add, remember every 2 phases is 7 days. If you observe a first quarter seen on September 16th, on what date would you observe a full moon? So go ahead and do exactly what you just did. Look at your diagram and add 7 days per 2 phases. If there is a 3rd phase or a 5th phase or an odd number of days or phases, then just go ahead and add 3.5 days. Okay, so you guys are good. Hopefully I already explained what you guys are going to be doing for the moon video in response. It is a Bill Nye video. I just think that he does a really good job of engaging you guys. But if you are not done, remember what I said about your planet book, then please go ahead and do that before you start your video. Go ahead and turn in your lunar cycle notes when you guys are done. And then hopefully I explained how to do the getting into TPT digital videos, digital activities. So go ahead and good luck, and thanks for listening. I know this is pretty long, 28 minutes. Sorry about that. I will try to make it shorter next time.